As more African women step into leadership and entrepreneurship, the conversation is shifting from simply earning income to building lasting wealth. But while financial literacy has improved, financial agency still lags behind. The Aligned Women Co. has today launched a flagship program to explore how women can move from understanding money to using it strategically to drive both personal and continental growth. And joining us now for that discussion is Nasrat Edoo-Sirkissoon, a business and leadership consultant at the Aligned Women Blueprint. Nasrat, thank you so much for making the time to speak to us, ma'am. Perhaps let's just start with the mission. What outcomes are you expecting from the program?
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. I think the program is actually aimed at addressing different topics that are pertinent to women, from financial literacy and agency and wealth planning and creation, to looking at personality and behavioral issues, to looking at health issues. I think women in the workplace experience many challenges that we sometimes think are topics that we shouldn't speak about. Menopause, the impact of that on your career, having children. How do we ensure that women can actually have successful careers while being empowered to actually be able to deal with some of the challenges that they face? And the Aligned Women program actually starts to address some of these challenges and allows organizations to actually enroll their women onto programs and to select the topics. They could do the entire program and work through all the different topics, so they could actually choose topics that suit their particular organization. And everybody that actually presents on that program is an expert, comes with huge experience and deep insights in sharing experiences. But it also allows for conversation and engagement in terms of us starting to actually talk about things that sometimes we feel shouldn't actually be spoken about or shouldn't be addressed, or people might actually think that if we speak about certain things, we would be considered weak.
Of course. And one of the things that women that often talk about is the investment decisions, right? Because there is this misconception, this common misconception that women are frivolous with money and that the men should take care of the financial responsibilities of a household. And just given that the studies even show that although women do understand money or money basics, few of them still don't feel as confident about making investment decisions. Just from your perspective, just help us understand the difference between financial literacy and financial urgency.
So financial literacy actually covers understanding what budgeting is about, what is saving, what is interest and inflation, what are the basic investment concepts, like a 32-day bank account, debit or facility at a bank. That is financial literacy, being able to balance my budget. If I had 100 Rand in my pocket, I should be able to tally how I spend my 100 Rand. That is literacy. Agency actually speaks to empowerment, where empowerment is around decision making. Do I feel confident enough to be able to decide how to spend, use, and save the money that I have? That is what agency means. So knowledge is the key to that, of course, and it comes from financial literacy and education. But agency is more, it extends further than that. It extends to our ability to manage the money, our ability to actually make decisions around that. Now, that is impacted by many things in the communities we've been raised in, the culture we've been raised in, the families we've been raised in, experiences we would have had, multiple experiences, from losing a parent, from being exposed to trauma, from losing siblings, from being the only child. All of those things will impact how we use the agency that we have.
But I also think we can appreciate that across the African continent, women still face structural barriers to wealth creation, and that is, it can be access to capital, it can be networks, it can be information. But just from your vantage point, where are you seeing the biggest gaps?
I think the biggest gap also comes from some of the so most African communities, and when I say that, I speak continentally, I think we have a great divide in terms of first, third world economies. So we also kind of need, so people are based in the metropole areas. Most people are exposed to first world economies. Many people that are based outside of metropole areas actually kind of operate in a third world economy. And we kind of need to bridge that. So we have first world solutions available for most people in the urban areas, but in terms of how do we address the person that runs a smaza shop? How do we address somebody who actually is a dressmaker in a rural community that is trying to be, financially empowered? So finding solutions for all of those people, so all the way from micro economies, all the way to small, medium, and large enterprises, those are some of the challenges that we face, and bridging those challenges will actually empower women in terms of being able to then understand all the solutions that are out there and what can be used to address their specific needs, whether they're a micro business or whether they're a small, medium, trying to become a multinational or a large corporate.
Okay. When we look at the macro picture as well, the IMF estimates that closing the gender parity or the gender gaps in Africa, it could significantly boost GDP across the continent. How critical is women's participation and financial empowerment to the continent's growth? And I'm just trying to understand what the opportunity cost is here.
I think the opportunity cost in not educating and empowering women is huge. I take for an example for some of the work that I did in Botswana, and having spoken to one of the bank managers where we were actually talking to communities in that area. And the comment that she made was that most of us don't know who our fathers are. And as a result, we actually raise a society that actually feels traumatized, that they don't know, how to actually create a stability, how to actually grow and prosper from primary school to middle school to high school, what opportunities are available. People kind of feel that they live in voids. So how do we actually, in societies where 80 to 90% of the women are responsible for actually putting food on the table, for being breadwinners, for actually raising children and empowering them to be the success of the future generation, I think it is important that we actually then create mechanisms, like I mentioned, either through microfinancing to, opportunities that are not just structurally first world, but can address all of these needs so that women can actually start to create and produce and actually then feed into the GDP of the country. The GDP, I think when we speak GDP generally, we kind of speak first world economies in all of the African countries from a GDP point of view. We don't actually include the economies that, if I think of rural economies, and rural economies made up of tuck shops, made up of micro businesses, either from baking bread or actually, people creating mini laundries. All of those things somehow get missed to be accounted for in the formal economy. So I think when we start to think GDP, we also need to widen our definition of how we count and account for GDP.
All right. Nasrat, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you, ma'am, for making the time to speak to us today. That was Nasrat Edoo-Sirkissoon, business and leadership consultant at the Aligned Women Blueprint.